Yo, 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 what's going on, golf fans? It's your boy, Gsluke, here with our round 4 prop stream for the Wyndham Championship. We've got play going on, so we've got stats rolling in. Gonna have a lot of value on the prop boards right now, so let's get ready to have ourselves a Sunday fun day. But hopefully you're having a fantastic start so far, and you're ready to talk some golf for the rest of the day. So say hi when you guys get into the live chat. Also, smash that like button if you haven't already, and feel free to hit me up with any sort of questions that you've got on your mind. And we got Golf Kid there early, said golf course getting lit up. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, a bunch of people vying for that top 70. So we've got that aspect to sweat out today as well. So that'll be some fun. Antonio, go collect gangrene there as well. And yes, some early morning coffee. I don't wake up before 10 o'clock and without a coffee in my stomach. So for sure have that. And yeah, dude, the DoorDash guy last night had me on full tilt. But this time, whenever it's sunny out, they have a much easier time finding my place. So cheers to you. No hangover here. I'm past that. I don't drink enough to get hangovers these days, but in college, definitely wasn't the case. A morning stream, always nice. And yeah, hit that like button, you sweaty tryhards, if you guys haven't already. Welcome on in, Justin. Hopefully you're having a fantastic end to your week as well. Let's start this off. So we're going to go through these averages quickly because they don't really mean all that much. The golf course is playing a whole lot easier today, but for round 3, it played harder. So that's why I think there's some value on these prop boards because they have not adjusted them quite yet. So it was about even par yesterday. Birdie average dropped from over 4 per round to only 3.9. But like I said, this doesn't really mean shit because today the weather has been ideal so far and it is going to kick up a little bit. So when we look at these averages, keep in mind that this is the best case scenario, that it is probably going to get slightly harder for the PM starters. But look at this, -1.5 on the front 9, which maybe on its own doesn't seem like a big difference. But when we look at round 3, that is over a stroke difference on one side of the course. And the back 9 is really where we're going to see, I think, an even bigger difference for today. So far, it's playing slightly under par, and that is even with 14 playing over its par right now. I mean, the day before it played like half a stroke over. Yeah, 0.56 over. So it is the hardest hole out there, but it's not going to play to a +1 scoring average, right? Just like 15 for that matter. I guess it's worth noting as well. Also isn't going to play to a -1 scoring average. So about -1, maybe -1.5 is what this is looking like it's tracking for, with upside to potentially even be closer to a -2 scoring average. So compared to yesterday where it was over par for everyone out there, that is going to be a big difference with these prop boards. So the first slip I already took, I'm actually going to give you guys now because there's only 30-something minutes until it locks. It's this under on Tony Finau and under on JT Poston stroke. So the Poston one is on Sportsbooks. He's -140 towards the under. That was at least earlier when I was looking at it. And these odds are dynamic. They're moving live. So let's see exactly where it is now. It is the same number, -140 towards that direction, which is getting close to that plus EV line. But with Tony Finau, he doesn't have a line for comparison, but he's that same tier of player. And in fact, for the week, his ball striking has been half decent. Yesterday was the first time all week where his putter kind of let him down. I'm okay getting to a bounce back spot on somebody where the putter, the short game was the main issue with their shots gained metrics. And Tony Finau, if we just take like a 10,000 foot look at the slate, he's one of the better players that we have in this field. Like, I know it's been a relatively disappointing season for him, but if we had to rank just the pure talent level of guys in this field, Tony Finau is at the very least top 10, if not top 5 on a lot of those lists. So I think that in general, there's some value for some unders on strokes on this board. And then even for overs on birdies, I know the average was only 3.9 per round in round 3, but that is going to jump up quite a bit. In fact, it could jump up to over 4.25 per round, and that wouldn't surprise me either. So if we take a look at the birdie or better list, like they've got some guys on here at 4, like Webb Simpson, they bumped from 4 to 4.5. He's got a great track record here. So I'm not, saying that that is egregious, but they have guys like Ricky Castillo at 4. Sammy Valimaki that are better players than Webb Simpson at this stage of his career that I'm highly considering for some overs. So it's actually taking a look at the sportsbook odds. Earlier, they were about even money on players like Cam Young, but look at that. Now it's starting to juice towards the over. So you can see Cam Young -125, Aaron Rise -145 towards the over. I don't think they had him on Prize Picks, but they may actually have him at Underdog at that 4.5. We'll have to take a look here in a second. but the sports books are starting to come along on these stats. Like, for example, Poston was even money. In fact, might have been slightly juiced towards the under when he opened on the slate and is now minus 130 over. Hideki Matsuyama, he was closer to even money, and now he's minus 150 over. You get the point at this point, right? They're starting to adjust for what you're seeing out there, which gives us some confirmation bias for the kind of positive stance plays that I was looking at. So, for example, Tony Finau is minus 135. Now that's getting close to that plus EV mark. And then Adam Scott minus 150 in that direction. So we don't have a lot of those studs on the board outside of Finau. I'd honestly prefer the strokes line over the birdie line at 68.5, because if he gets to 5 birdies, 2 bogeys, that feels like maybe the most likely outcome for a lot of these players. That would be a hit. If he gets to 4 birdies and 2 bogeys, that would also be a hit. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. If it gets to 5-3, you get it, right? A lot of those permutations are the ones that without a double bogey are going to be the most common. I would slightly prefer that strokes line, but with some of the other more aggressive players, the birdie or better board could be a little bit better as well. So a Cam Young, the only hesitation with me on that one is the fact that he's in first by 5 strokes and might be a little bit more conservative than he otherwise would be. So let me actually take a look at the Underdog board. And let's see exactly what they have posted over here, because I'm assuming that they have more studs. The issue is going to be the multiplier and the sort of payouts that you're getting on Underdog, but let me at least see what they have up here. So there's the Aaron Raya one. He does have a multiplier on it. You've got a lot of the same faces from site to site. Let's see, Webb Simpson's also at that 4.5 mark, which I find kind of wild that he's at the same projection as studs, but that's just how well that he's played at Sedgefield Country Club. But his first child's named Wyndham, by the way. If you guys didn't know that, you probably have heard it a few times, because every content creator in human history has mentioned it at some point. But yeah, he likes this golf course so much that he named one of his children after it. So let's see. Let's catch up on chat, see what's going on down there. Let me know, by the way, any sort of bets you guys want me to deep dive, and we'll try and add some bets on top of that. And look at that. JT Poston actually just bumped on live stream there. I'm not quite sure exactly when that happened, but not a surprise given that he was minus 140 towards the under. So we'll try and probably add at least one more slip here on the live stream, and then we'll probably look at some 3 balls towards the end as well. He said, you never make it live, but hello from Cincinnati. Nice to have you in one of these live streams for once. So glad to have you here. And so you said, I don't like to take the standings into account. That's true. But would it be smart to take people on the border today? So yeah, I'm going to say no on that one, just because I think it impacts people differently. If you're playing for your job, if you're playing for your tour status next year, at least personally, it would impact me negatively. I know I'd be thinking about it. I play my best golf when I'm just trying to be process-based and really focus on what I'm doing, not so much what's at stake. So I think that some people might play better, right? They got that Kobe mentality where it's on the line, they kind of step up to it. But then you get your players like Tommy Fleetwood or Cam Young, for example, that do the exact opposite. So I would be a little hesitant about that personally. You got Echeverria and Cam Young under on strokes, which is looking decent. Yeah, I don't think the PM weather's that bad where you should worry about it, but I like those 2 leans. I could get behind those. You said Raya is at 67.5 on pick 6. That seems too low. Not so much, man. I mean, with these conditions looking like it might play minus, 1.5 around that kind of number, I wouldn't say so. I mean, he's about that number on sports books and even money, I would say. And see, he was juiced like minus 170 over earlier. So I'm assuming that he's still juiced a little over, but it's probably coming back down to earth. Let's see. So yeah, he's minus 140 in that direction, which is still close to the plus EV line. So I wouldn't be completely against the over at 67.5 against, but with the scores trending in the direction that they are, I have a feeling that this is going to get closer to even money. So that would be the argument against it, I suppose. Just playing devil's advocate, as you guys know that I do. Thoughts on Sami Välimäki? Looking at his under on strokes, but his birdie line's good too. He's he said 31st in birdie or better percentage and 66 in greens. So the 31st in birdie or better percentage probably does make him a better look over there. And wasn't he at 4 birdies? So now that I even think about it, this might even be a prop that I play, because I think the birdie average is going to be at least 4 per round, probably closer to like 4.25. So somebody that's top 50 in the category would for sure be a look. In fact, I didn't realize that he ranked out that highly in the category. My guy Sammy has been vaulting up the charts, I suppose, because earlier this year he was not rating out that way. Let's see, where's he at? So Välimäki number 31. I want to look at Castillo too. So that's really why I brought this up. Where's Ricky Castillo at? So Ricky's number 81. So Valimaki's probably the better of those two players to mix in. But let's look at Fishburne. I'm looking at the players at a solid 4 because that push equity feels like something nice to have if you can. So let's not only look, like we can look at Goodwin too. Goodwin, Fishburne. Let's look at those two. Those would be the first two that we consider. Goodwin, I have no idea where he ranks out. Okay, so number 101, not so great. And I don't think Fishburne's that highly either, but let's see. So Fishburne's number 100 as well, right next to each other, actually. Probably should have seen that one there. Yeah, that Valimaki lane, though, I think is pretty decent. I'm going to look at the shots gained metrics on Castillo because maybe that's the reason why we can get behind him. So he lost short game, gained off the tee, but lost a little on approach yesterday. Day before that was about a neutral in the off the tee and putting and gained the 2 middle categories. And then the first day he was short game dependent. So, you know what? The Castillo one, I'm maybe not as sold on. Let's look at the Valimaki shots gained metrics because might as well vet those, even though it is pretty good stat value. You got him gaining on approach, gaining putting the day before. Before that, it was extremely approach heavy. I love that. And then the first day, yeah, same thing. I mean, he lost short game, but he gained in the 2 ball striking categories. Yeah, this Sammy Valimaki one, I could co-sign. What is his strokes line? I'm guessing 69 strokes, right? That's more than likely where they have a lot of these guys at 4. So yeah, he's at 69 strokes flat. I'm wondering if he has a sportsbook line. Most likely not because he's a lower tier player. I know he's played well this week, but yeah, they don't have him up for that. Yeah, that birdie or better line is probably the best way to take him if you're going to play a Semi Valimaki prop. And worth noting with that 67.5, I know we had somebody mentioning an over on that. Like Ben Griffin, he was minus 160 towards the over at one point. Now he's only that minus 130. So I would be maybe slightly hesitant about fades. If I played props last night, I probably would have entered some fades, which is the ironic part about it. Because, I mean, this over par scoring average really would have shaded me in that direction. But I was super tired. I was cooked after the wedding last night. So I just went to bed, woke up, and then started getting into it. And it probably saved me at least a slip, maybe even 2 slips for going out there and entering a whole bunch of fades. So let's actually go to the underdog side. I was going to try and take an Aaron Wright under on bogeys, but they took it from even money and added this 0.89x multiplier. So they kind of destroyed the value that I was looking at on that. So maybe rather than going that direction, we look at the birdie or better lines and try and find somebody for that. So like, I know Davis Thompson rates out pretty well in birdie or better. Same thing with Sungjae Im. So just to show you those two. So Sungjae Im is like 49 on tour or something. So that's pretty decent there. And then Davis Thompson, where's he at? So yeah, he's number 34 on tour in that specific category. So if I think the average is going to go up, if they have the sportsbook line value as well, then I don't see why we don't consider mixing one of those two in. So where's, let's find these two in particular. So Thompson, by the way, has had a good week. The form probably favors him the most. He's minus 125 in that direction. And then what do we have for Sungjae? Sungjae, geez, he played so terribly yesterday. He screwed me on a prop that I played him for. He just looked like he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn or couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat yesterday. But today's a new day. I'm always willing to go to a bounce back. And he's also that minus 125. So I was hoping to see like minus 130, minus 135 juice here. That's kind of what I was looking for with that. But it's not the worst with minus 125. Maybe they're just being a little bit slow to bump these categories. And when we look at the averages, you can see that they have this stretch here that's playing quote unquote +1. This stretch, 13, 14, 15, is going to end up playing under par at some point. So though it's a quote unquote minus 0.32 scoring average, this section here will be, I don't know, minus 0.25 likely between the 3 holes because 15 is going to play probably half a stroke under par. And then 13, 14, 13 is not that bad. That could probably play under par by the end of the day. But 14, probably a half a stroke over par. That's how you get that between those 3 holes. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the data golf stuff. And I don't know, maybe we're not going to be able to find a second slip to enter here on stream. I really wanted to. I thought it'd be easier, but they're being so bump heavy on this side of things that I don't know if it's going to be as easy as I thought it was. But I mean, ideally, I was looking at a Ben Griffin over on birdies, but maybe we go to Cam Young instead. Cam Young's probably still minus 125. Yeah, a lot of those players are that same sort of value. So let's just plug in our favorite. I'm going to go Sungjae for the bounce back. And that's probably seems counterintuitive. A lot of people probably would have rather gone to Davis Thompson or Cam Young in that scenario. But I'm going to go with Sungjae just because I know golf is a crazy sport. This is a sport where we get bounce backs like you would never believe. And people that are playing super well that fall apart out of nowhere as well. Like on Sundays, give me some Sunjay M at 4.5. He's also one of the top birdie makers out of the bunch, right? He was there at number 49. And if anything, he's due to make some birdies this time around. So let's throw him in there. And then for a fade, the reason why we need a fade, by the way, is even if we took, let's say, like an under on strokes, that's 2.58x, which is just utter horseshit. So I'm not going to enter that sort of thing. And if I'm going to find a fade, I kind of want to do it with greens and regulation or fairways, because we don't have those on Prize Picks. We don't even like have a selection for those categories. So it's kind of nice to be able to deep dive these and get some extra, props to go through. I was looking at this Gary Woodland under earlier on greens regulation, and they actually bumped that one down. So I guess good to see that they agree with, my take on the course might be a little bit harder to hit greens today. Reason for that is it's going to be drier than it was the day before. I do think conditions will be easier, though. It's not like it's going to be difficult to get up and down when you're missing greens, but it was only 12.64 from the day before. So that's why I was looking at that one just for shits and gigs. What would the payout look on that? It would be 2.83x. I ideally would rather not have that multiplier, and it looks like a lot of these guys, unfortunately, do have that multiplier that we'd have to play with. So we can look at fairways instead. Let's do that. Let's go to the fairway category instead and see if we can find some value there. If not, I'm probably going to stick to Prize Picks just because the payout multipliers are a lot easier to work with on a set like Prize Picks. And Sunjay, we could even take for strokes if we want to play him on the Prize Pick side. So before we do so, though, let me see if there's anything here we can cook with. McGreevy's extremely accurate. He's a top 30 accuracy guy, and Echeverria is also relatively accurate. I just want to see where he ranks out because I know McGreevy is top 30, but I'm not 100% sure on Etch. I know Etch hits some fairways, though. He's not the longest player off the tee. I can empathize with him. He's number 47 in that specific category, so maybe not the best fade candidate. And to go back to the averages, it was 9.16 per round the day before. It'll dry out a little bit, so it could go down to about 9 per round. I think that seems pretty reasonable. So the reason why I was looking at these 9.5s for a potential under is because if they were average to below average accuracy guys, then that would make a whole lot of sense. But when it's an Echeverria, McGreevy that are top 50 on tour, maybe not so much. So let's see. Let's line shop it a bit more. Davis Thompson doesn't hit that many fairways. I know he's not terribly inaccurate, though. So that multiplier probably makes it unplayable. Yeah, he's number 38 in tour. In fact, way better than I thought he was going to be in that specific category. Then Sunjay hits a whole bunch. He's, in fact, probably an elite tier accuracy guy. Let's look at Matty Fitzpatrick. I know that he's not a slouch when it comes to the accuracy, but let's see exactly where he rates out. Number 67 on tour, which makes it make sense that he has that multiplier. In fact, yeah, I don't see much value on this board whatsoever. So let's go back to Prize Picks. I told you guys we could do it this way. So we already have that Simi Valimaki prop. As long as this hasn't bumped, and it looks like it hasn't quite yet, you could take Sunjay M for the under on 68.5. And the birdie or better board was where I first wanted to go there. But now, kind of after thinking about it multiple times, Sunjay's a good bogey avoider, at least most times. Yesterday, that was not the case. He had that big triple bogey with the out of bounds ball. Also, some uncharacteristic mistakes that took him way down the board. But at 68.5, I believe he was valued towards the under on the sports books. But let me exactly double check where they have him now. It's this category that we need to use. And yeah, he's minus 130. So it's not like he's like drastic value in that direction. But kind of like the minus 125s, it's at least a little bit of a boost there. And rather than getting a shitty payout like the 2.58x like you get with the birdie or better props on Underdog, these two are 2.75x if you played them together, which in my opinion is a lot more reasonable. If you wanted to play the birdie or better prop, we could on Sunjay M, but just like the Tony Finau one that I was pointing out before, I feel like this category is probably the better way to go about it. So I'll make that the second stream slip that we're going with for today. It'll be the over on Valimaki and under on Sunjay M strokes, which and by the way, I want to look at the Valimaki line. I don't think it's going to be massive value, but I'm assuming that he's at this 4.5 mark and juiced a little bit under, which he is. You can see the minus 150 juice there, but now we're getting the push equity at 4. So that's why I still like that one. And if you're going to take like props that are even money, by the way, a little bit of, I guess, pro tip or like a life hack for making sure that you're getting the right side of the value is make sure that you're taking it towards the actual projection. Like if it's a 4 projection and you're trying to figure out whether the value is on the over or the under, if it's at 4.5 on sportsbooks, usually the value is towards the over. And for example, let's say if he was at 3.5 birdies and then juiced way towards the over, most of the time, and it depends on the juice, right? If they have them like minus 300, then it's a different story. But if it's reasonable, like minus 140 to minus 160, the juice is in the direction of the actual sportsbook line, or the value, I should say, is in the juice of the actual sportsbook line. So keep that in mind for a lot of these different props that you guys are seeing. Let's catch up on chat, and then we'll talk through some matchups and get on out of here. You got C. Floyds. Welcome on in. Cheers to you, my dude. He said, do I like Jordan for the under at 68? He's trying to keep that top 50. Yeah, the top 50 stuff doesn't really play into it, but unders on strokes in general, I could get behind today, and especially for my favorite player, Jordan Spieth. He said, am I leaning overs on those birdies? Yes, definitely for overs. Just trying to make sure I'm line shopping ones that make the most sense. And looking at Woodland for the under at 69. It's under at 69 strokes, so have an average day and push, that kind of thing. That's more than a reasonable ask, I would say, from a lot of players, and especially a Gary Woodland who's playing well. I'm not going to get to that lean myself, but I'm not going to give you too much pushback on that one. So how about the new guy then? He shouldn't have pressure for Koiven under 69. Yeah, he probably won't be playing with that pressure, but even then, I don't think it's like that important of a narrative. Like, it's just more so, is he going to hit his golf shots today? I think we try to galaxy brain ourselves a little bit too much when we break down golf. And a lot of times it's a lot more straightforward than we tend to make it. So that's what I try and do. I try and use the stats more than anything. That's really where I galaxy brain these slates, not so much on the narrative streets. Antonio says, what do I think about Goodwin for the under 69 and a half? So 69 and a half, he's got to shoot -1 to cover that kind of thing. Assuming the scoring average is trending towards that -1 and a half, then that is a very reasonable ask. Now, I would say because he's got a late tee time that you might want to wait and see exactly where that scoring average pans out. In fact, I'm going to refresh this to see if we've gotten any more data on some of those later holes. Front nine, this is the big tell in my opinion, because through the front nine, we've got at least 10, 11 people through all of those holes. The front nine's a half a stroke easier than the day before, so that really gives us the information we need for this golf course. But by the time this back nine gets the data that we need, like, look at this. Eric Cole's the only one through like a good majority of these holes on the back nine. Once it gets closer to like 10, 15 players that we have through that back side, if it's playing to that -1 and a half in like 10, 15 minutes, then for sure, give me some Goodman on that under. He said Thompson over 4.5. Do I like that? It's kind of like a 50-50 one for me, man. The thing with Thompson is that he's a little bit of a loser. Like, every time I bet on him, he absolutely sucks. And then every time I don't bet on him, I look at the leaderboard and he's like -7, -8. So the reason for that too is that he doesn't play in the signature events. He's not playing in all like the strongest field events every week. He was at one point, but ever since he kind of like went down the boards on the FedEx Cup standings, he hasn't been teeing it up every single time now. That's the concern for me, because he's top 50 on tour in the category, but it's not like it's a Jordan Spieth, right? Who would be top 50 on the tour in the category and is played in all those signature field events. So I know that's a 50-50 coin flip for me, man. He said, do I prefer Im or Davis for the under at 68.5? Definitely Sungjae Im. He said, do I think that Cam can maintain under pressure? That's the question. I don't think anyone has the answer to that. That's what everyone's got on their mind today, right? Is Cam going to keep it together or is he not? Don't have a crystal ball. I've got no idea what direction it's going to go. I do have to say that history would tell us that he might choke a little bit, make it an interesting event. However, they kick down the door at some point, right? Everyone's a winner until everyone's not a winner, I should say, until they're not. Like Tommy Fleetwood, we're going to call him a choker until he goes out there and wins like 3 events in a row. Like, it's going to happen at some point. He's just that talented. Don't be surprised if that happens. That's just the life cycle of golf, right? Everyone's a loser until they're not. He said, it doesn't seem like the course is playing that easy today. It definitely is. If you take a look at the average from the front nine, it's at least a half a stroke easier than the day before. So you can see here, 0.59 on the front side. Now it's 1.16 under par. And the back nine, we can't really learn that much about because, like I said, there's only a couple holes where people have even played it. It's mostly just Eric Cole that is on that side of things. The front nine, though, has 15, 20, 30 people through it on these holes towards the very front side. So take a look at the averages, man. And you are tuning into a live stream to get prop and betting advice. Maybe don't tell the chat how to bet themselves, right? If you're going to chats trying to figure out what to bet for yourself, you're probably not the expert in the space. That's all I'll say on that one. He said maybe Noren is a good fade. Let's look at the shots gained metrics. If I'm assuming he's a little bit short game dependent, if you're saying that sort of thing. So Alex Noren, short game dependent round 1. Round 2 was pretty decent ball striking, but round 3, yeah, I don't know if I'd say he's like a great fade candidate. Like, if it was after round 1, it was this ball striking stats that weren't there. I'd be like, okay, I could see what you're looking at, but I don't know. I wouldn't really be looking at fades today, man, at least based on the averages that we're seeing. Bogeys are worse at 1.5, just changed. They moved them down to 1.5. Wow, that's crazy. I think that's doing too much, right? I do think it'll play a little easier, but 1.5 bogeys is kind of crazy. So yeah, I don't see them on there at that number. It looks like they're at 2.5 for me, but 1.5 would be overdoing it, I would say. What's going on? Stacking. Did I do any 2 balls for a lottery today? I did not. I have not looked at the matchups at all yet. He said, Young's not a very accurate driver, but with him clubbing down, do you think 8.5 is decent at plus money? So really good thought process there, right? We're talking about somebody who has to play conservative. He's got a 5-shot lead. I'm not talking about hitting less than driver on every single hole, but on the short par 4s, yeah, he's not going to hit the big stick. Like days 1 and 2, he was being aggressive, trying to get to a super low score. He said he's hit 9, 10, and 12 so far. Yeah, I mean, that tells us the strategy right there, right? He's not the sort of player that's been forcing it down those fairways. So I could see that, man. I'm normally not an accurate driver. You're spot on with that. Like, we don't even have to look at the stats. He's probably like number 150, 160 on tour when it comes to hitting fairways, but it's different this week, I would say, on that. It's a Koiven under 69 strokes could be a good play too. Dude has been playing some good golf recently. Yeah, he's an absolute stud. I've been on record as saying that he'll be a top 5 player in the world someday. So shout out to Koiven. He's good now, and he's still in college, and he's still, I think, like 20 years old. So imagine him in a couple years, he's going to be even better. He's a can Mark Hubbard shoot 69 or better, chat? I would hope so, since that's going to be the average. He's a good look, Siwoo on that quap. Yeah, what was the prop you were looking at before? You said maybe Norn on a fade. Yeah, I don't agree with that one, but you can fade him if you want to. Simpson for the under at 69. If he's at 4.5 birdies, I mean, you have to think if he's going to go over 4.5 birdies, he's probably going to shoot under 69 strokes. But in my opinion, there's better players at 69 strokes that you can choose, like a Echeverria, even a Cam Young at 69, are just better players than Webb Simpson. Yeah, we're going to look at some 3 balls. You said Denny or Tony Finau today. You got to let me know what kind of market you're looking at, Matt. I guess it depends. Is that DFS? Is that for props? Is that for matchups? No idea, right? If you're just asking me to choose who has the better day between those two, I guess Denny McCarthy, but it all really depends on exactly where you're entering that. And he said Cam Young is at 3.5 bogeys on Sleeper. Yeah, let me know the multiplier, Jose. So kind of like the Matt one there, like what are we getting on it, right? Sleeper is a site where you have multipliers that can range from 3x the whole way down to 1.2x. Big difference depending on where they have that. So if you guys have questions about like specific bets, you've got to give me the odds and the market on it, or else it's just nonsense, right? I can't give you guys really any information or any feedback if I don't know what you guys are playing it for. He said, no problem, Antonio. You think Koiven does well? Yeah, Koiven is a heck of a play. Heck of a player in general. I gotta say 69 strokes too feels disrespectful, at least for how I see him. He's the kind of player that right now I think would be a top 25 player on the PGA Tour. And I think in a year or two, he's a top 5 player on the PGA Tour. So yeah, if that's going to be your community play, then I can get behind that one for sure. Not the Norn fade, though. I do have to kind of talk against that one. You said just joined. What picks did you miss? You might want to go back, Jaden. We had one slip that we've already taken on the prize pick side. That was 20 Finau understrokes and JT posted understrokes, but they bumped the post in 1.5. The other one that we took that you can still take right now is the Sami Valimaki over on birdies, and then the Sungjae Im under on strokes. So make sure to get that one in if you guys haven't already. Let's go through some matchups. So I haven't entered any matchups myself because they just got those posted on the Hard Rock Bet side. But let's see what they have on DraftKings first. So let's go over to matchups. It's 2 balls. It's not 3 balls today, so we're going to be stuck with that. The 3-mark market, by the way, is utter shit. Don't do it with the ties. They're never worth taking, in my opinion. They always screw you on the odds whenever they can. And I'm assuming he was looking at this matchup between Tony and Denny McCarthy. But just as I was saying before, right? Denny's the favorite. So, like, if you gave me them at even money odds, like, sure, I would bet Denny McCarthy, but minus 140 is not even money odds. So, not trying to pick on you too much in chat, right, for that sort of comment, but that's why I say those sort of things, because yeah, minus 140, like, okay, whatever, that's probably where he should be. So let's try and find some more value here. I like a Jordan Spieth, but not at minus 200. That's actually egregious. Hell, maybe even Patrick Rogers is the play at plus 150 because Jordan Spieth's not playing like 2016 Spieth these days. You got Matt Wallace versus William Mao. I actually kind of like Mao in that matchup, but plus 110 is probably not enough for me to bite on that. Let's keep going. Harry Hall versus Bridgman. Hall has been so damn consistent that That minus 145 probably even makes sense, even though I like Bridgman at this golf course. Let's see, Webb is the favorite over Phillips. That's wild, dude. This is the kind of respect that Webb gets at this golf course. Literally named his child after the course. Other courses too. I think he named one of his children after something at the RSM Classic too. It's just something Webb does at this point. Got Hideki versus Michael Kim. Yeah, he should be the favorite. In fact, minus 155 might not be enough on Hideki. I hate those minus money odds, especially this is why I don't like the two ball market in general, is the minus money odds aren't my favorite. Let's see, Castillo versus McGreevy. I actually like McGreevy on that one, so I agree with that. Yeah, the two ball market's never my favorite. There's probably not going to be that much that we end up entering on this, really, if at all. At least on Hard Rock Bet, the reason why I don't focus on it nearly as much is this market with the tie up here is what they post all of them for. So you cannot enter a two ball without the tie, which I mentioned just how shitty that is for anyone that has to play that market. It is terrible for the odds that you're getting in. The problem with it is if they gave you proper odds on like the other players, it'd be totally fine. Like if they juiced them up enough to warrant taking it with a tie, then sure, I would still do it, but they don't. Sometimes you get the same odds as what you're getting on sites like DraftKings and FanDuel for the regular two ball market on a site like Hard Rock Bet. So that's the monopoly that we deal with down here in Florida. It's ran by the state, and they have it all regulated throughout the ass to where there's only one sports book. So there's no alternatives that we can go through down here. So that's why I'm not really the biggest on this two ball market and why we maybe don't spend as much time on it. And it's very straightforward why I don't spend as much time on it, right? If I'm not entering stuff for my own money, it's just not something I'm going to focus on as much as some of these other markets. But going through this, there were some minus money ones that were kind of catching my eye. So I'm actually going to point those ones out. By the way, this Cam Young versus Echeverria, Cam Young being plus money, let's actually throw that one in there. I do not agree with that. I know that he's playing with the pressure, but he's significantly a better player than Nico. And I'm a big Nico Echeverria fan, so that's me even saying that. I wasn't against that Harry Hall one because of how consistent of a player he is. And then there was one more. I guess I skipped beyond it. It was this Hideki Matsuyama one. Like if you wanted to go with some minus money ones, and then maybe throw in a plus money and juice up the payout to, I don't know, this is like just under a 5 to 1 payout in terms of profit. It's not the worst, but these two balls are just, they're so much worse than the three ball market. Three ball market, we can go to the second or the third favorite and sometimes find people that should be the favorites in those matchups at like obscene odds, like plus 200 to plus 250. Now we're grinding out plus 105s, minus 145s on props that I mean, they have higher hit rate, of course, because they're going against one player as opposed to two players. But the hit rates, they aren't the sort of value, in my opinion, that we can get in some of those three ball markets. So I'll throw these out there as spitballed ideas. My favorite, though, if you were just going to enter one of them, you don't want to do a parlay, which I couldn't blame you for. Parlays are normally just lighting money on fire, especially if you're not getting the kind of value in EV as you should be. But if you want to go with the straight bet, this Cam Young at plus 105 would probably be my favorite for that. So, and that's even with the pressure of trying to close out a lead. And we'll talk about the game theory, I guess, because the game theory does come into play when you're trying to figure out whether you'd want to bet him in that two ball market. He's up by 5 strokes. He's up by 8 strokes on third place. It seems impossible for somebody to come tracking him down. But all it takes is, a Cleveland, a Kirk, an Aaron Ride to, I don't know, go -4, -5 through his first 9 holes. And Cam Young's still going to have to be relatively aggressive. And then the other aspect of it too is this isn't a golf course where the scoring average is -5. It's not the Century Tournament of Champions, for example, where sometimes the scoring average is legit, like -4.5. If that was the case, I might be a little bit more worried about it. This isn't really a birdie fest, right? Like it played over par the day before. Let's not forget ourselves. Today, it's tracking to play about a half a stroke to a stroke under par. So it's going to play a little bit easier than that. He's still going to have to make some birdies. And even then, like a -2 rounds, which isn't necessarily being super aggressive, could win that matchup against a Nico Echeverria. So totally fine with that one. But yeah, that's all we're going to do for the live stream here, guys. I've got some props to post for my Patreon members and try and give them some value for the next day. Make sure to check out my Patreon page for every single slip that I'm taking for today's action. I've already got that fee now post and slip that was posted earlier, the one that we caught value on. That was given to my Patreon members first. So that's part of the reason why that line bumped so quickly, right? Because they were entering that and then we mentioned it on the live stream here. But for every single piece of action action that I'm entering. As soon as I enter them, you guys can find those over there. And you can join that by checking out the link in the description of this video. So that's all, guys. Best of luck, and I'll see you guys for all the content next